I still remember the look in his eyes when he said those words. I don't care if you leave. The apartment door slammed behind me as thunder crashed outside. I had no idea that walking away would change both our lives forever. 3 years later, I stood frozen in the doorway of his hospital room. The man who once claimed he wouldn't shed a tear for me was drowning in them. But what he didn't know was that I carried a secret that would shatter his world all over again. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began. Rain hammered against our penthouse windows that night, each drop a tiny bullet striking the glass. Our argument had been building for hours, the tension coiling tighter with every accusation. 5 years of marriage, 3 years building our startup together, and it had come to this. Ethan and I circling each other like wounded animals in the living room we'd once been so proud of. You weren't at the investor meeting, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. Again. Ethan didn't look up from his phone. Something came up. Something always comes up lately. I moved closer, arms crossed over my chest. The scent of unfamiliar perfume clung to his collar. Or should I say someone? That got his attention. His eyes, those deep brown eyes I'd once found so honest, finally met mine. What's that supposed to mean, Maya? I laughed, the sound brittle and foreign even to my own ears. I saw the texts, Ethan. The muscle in his jaw tightened. He set his phone face down on the marble counter with deliberate care. You went through my phone? I didn't have to. Your messages with Clarissa pop up on your laptop, which you left open. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Not exactly subtle. For a moment something flickered across his face. Was it guilt? But then his expression hardened and he ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair. We've been over for months, Maya. You just refused to see it. His words hit like a physical blow. I stepped back, steadying myself against the back of our custom Italian sofa. What are you talking about? We had dinner together 3 nights ago. You bought me flowers last weekend. Playing the part, he said with a shrug that sent ice through my veins. The devoted husband. The perfect couple. Great for our investors, isn't it? Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face in harsh white light. For a second he looked like a stranger. So that's all I am to you now? A business asset. My voice trembled despite my best efforts. Don't be dramatic, he sighed. We both know this marriage has been dead for a long time. You're just too afraid to admit it. I moved to our bedroom without another word, yanking open drawers and pulling out clothes. My hands shook as I threw items into a suitcase, the one we'd bought for our honeymoon to Bali. A lifetime ago. Ethan appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with casual indifference. What are you doing? What does it look like? I snapped, tossing in another handful of clothes. I'm leaving. He watched me for a moment, then checked his watch. Tonight. It's pouring outside. I'll manage. I zipped the suitcase closed with a sharp final sound. Ethan crossed his arms. You're being ridiculous. Where will you even go? Does it matter to you? I challenged, looking up at him. That's when he said it. The words that would change everything between us. He shrugged, his expression utterly blank. I don't care if you leave. 5 words. Simple really. But they cracked something open inside me. A dam I'd built to hold back all my doubts, my fears, my growing suspicion that the man I married had disappeared long ago. I straightened up slowly, dignity the only thing I had left. Well, I guess that settles it then. As I moved past him, my gaze caught on our wedding photo on the dresser. 5 years of memories in a silver frame. Without thinking, I picked it up and hurled it across the room. The glass shattered against the wall, fragments skittering across the hardwood floor. Ethan didn't flinch. Mature, Maya. Very mature. Something white fluttered from behind the broken frame, a small card that had been hidden there. I recognized it immediately. My fertility specialist's appointment card from 2 years ago. The appointments I'd kept secret after Ethan had made it clear children weren't in his plan. I left it there among the glass. Another secret buried in the wreckage of us. Goodbye, Ethan, I said, wheeling my suitcase toward the door. He didn't follow. Didn't call after me. The only sound was the thunder and the wheels of my suitcase against the floor. I paused at the front door, some foolish part of me still hoping he'd stop me. Say something. Anything. He didn't. The apartment door slammed behind me as thunder crashed outside. In the hallway, I pressed the elevator button with trembling fingers, swallowing the sob building in my throat. In the taxi, rain streaking down the windows mirrored the tears on my face. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Zoe? It's me. I need a place to stay. My voice cracked. It's over. I had no idea that walking away would change both our lives forever. 18 months later, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden rectangles across my San Francisco apartment. I hummed quietly, preparing my morning coffee while balancing my phone against a stack of design magazines. I still can't believe that client doubled your fee. Zoe's voice came through the speaker, her face pixelated but beaming on video chat. Maya Chin, design goddess extraordinaire. I laughed, stirring honey into my coffee. Let's not get carried away. But yes, business is good. I moved to the window, revealing the view of the bay behind me. Better than good, actually. I just signed a contract for that boutique hotel project I told you about. Look at you, Zoe said with obvious pride. From sleeping on my pull-out couch to conquering the design world. All in less than 2 years. I wouldn't call a 6-room boutique hotel conquering the world, I countered, but couldn't help smiling. The journey from that rainy night in New York to here hadn't been easy, but I'd made it. Speaking of conquering. Zoe's tone shifted. Did you see the Business Insider article about Ethan? My hand stilled on my mug. No. Why would I? His company collapsed 3 months after you left. Completely imploded. He paused, studying my reaction through the screen. Investors pulled out when the app failed its security audit. Apparently, Clarissa wasn't just warming his bed, she was selling company secrets to competitors. A complicated knot of emotions twisted in my stomach. Sympathy, vindication, and something else I couldn't name. That's unfortunate, I managed, aiming for neutral but falling somewhere between satisfied and sad. Unfortunate. Zoe snorted. The man cheated on you and told you he didn't care if you left. I'd call it karma. I moved back to the kitchen island, settling onto a bar stool. That part of my life is over, Zoe. I've moved on. Have you really? She challenged gently. When was the last time you went on a date? I groaned. Not this again. That architect from the networking event was cute. And he definitely liked you. He also had a tattoo of his mother's face on his bicep, I reminded her. I saw it when he reached for the appetizers. Zoe burst out laughing. Hey, fair point. But there was also that client's brother at the Christmas party, who spent 45 minutes explaining cryptocurrency to me, I finished. Such a catch. Fine, she conceded, still chuckling. But seriously, Maya. It's been over a year since you've even tried. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. I glanced at the screen and felt my heartbeat quicken. I've got to take this, I told Zoe quickly. It's Dr. Chin. The fertility specialist? Any news? I'll call you back, I promised, switching calls. Dr. Chin, hello. Maya. The doctor's warm voice came through clearly. I have your results. I closed my eyes, bracing myself. 6 months of hormone treatments, 3 failed attempts, and more money than I cared to calculate. All for this moment. The procedure worked, she said simply. You're pregnant. The world seemed to stop. Are you sure? Absolutely positive. 6 weeks along and everything looks perfect. Congratulations. I sank onto the nearest chair, one hand finding its way to my still flat stomach. I can't believe it. After we discussed next steps and scheduled a follow-up appointment, I sat in stunned silence, tears sliding down my cheeks. Baby. My baby. The one thing I'd wanted most in the world. The thing Ethan had refused to even discuss. The memory surfaced unbidden. Ethan pacing our living room 3 years ago, angry after discovering a parenting book I'd hidden in my nightstand drawer. We've been through this, Maya, he'd said, frustration evident. Children don't fit into our 5-year plan. The company needs all our focus right now. And what about what I need? I'd asked quietly. He'd looked at me like I was speaking a language he couldn't understand. We agreed on this before we got married. No kids until the company goes public. Maybe not even then. I'd started the fertility treatment 6 months later, determined that even if he wouldn't father my children, I'd find another way. I'd never gathered the courage to tell him. Now here I was, single, successful, and pregnant. I picked up my phone to call Zoe back, but before I could dial, the doorbell rang. Frowning, I checked the time, 10:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw a familiar figure shifting nervously in the hallway. My heart lurched painfully in my chest. Not Ethan. But close enough. I pulled open the door, coming face to face with my former brother-in-law. Liam. My voice came out barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? He looked different, thinner, with new lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 18 months ago. But his smile was the same cautious curve I remembered. Hey Maya, he said softly. It's been a while. How did you find me? I asked, not moving from the doorway. He shuffled uncomfortably. Can I come in? I need to talk to you about Ethan. The name hung in the air between us, heavier than it had any right to be after all this time. Ethan doesn't know I'm here, Liam added quickly, seeing my hesitation. But he needs your help. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, a protective gesture I'd need to learn to hide. Whatever news Liam brought, it couldn't have come at a more complicated time. Please Maya, Liam pressed. 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let the past walk back into my carefully reconstructed life. Ethan needs my help? I heard myself say as I led Liam into my living room. The words tasted foreign on my tongue. That's unexpected. Liam stood awkwardly in the center of the room, taking in the space. The cream sofa with turquoise accent pillows, the statement light fixture I'd designed myself, the wall of windows framing the bay. Nothing like the sleek, cold minimalism Ethan had insisted on in our New York apartment. Your place is nice, he offered. Very you. Thanks. Please sit. I gestured to the sofa while taking the armchair opposite, creating as much distance between us as politeness allowed. How did you find me? Liam sank onto the edge of the cushion. Your website. Maya Chin Design. Not exactly hiding. I meant, how did you know I was in San Francisco? Zoe mentioned it to my girlfriend Jess at their college reunion last month. He shrugged apologetically. Small world. I made a mental note to discuss information security with Zoe later. Does Ethan know you're here? No. Liam leaned forward, elbows on knees. And he'd probably kill me if he found out. Something in his expression made my stomach tighten. Liam had always been the steadier brother, the rational counterweight to Ethan's intensity. Seeing him nervous was unsettling. What's wrong with him? I asked, my voice softer than intended. Liam's eyes searched mine. Everything, Maya. Everything's wrong with him. Over the next 15 minutes, Liam detailed the collapse of my ex-husband's life. The company bankruptcy, the apartment foreclosure, the drinking that started as a coping mechanism and spiraled into dependency. He was hospitalized twice, Liam said, his voice dropping. Once for alcohol poisoning. The second time was, he didn't want to wake up anymore. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I reached for my water glass, finding it empty. I'm sorry to hear that, I managed. But I don't understand why you're telling me this. We've been divorced for over a year. Legally separated, Liam corrected. The divorce was never finalized. Ethan wouldn't sign the papers. I stared at him, processing this revelation. All this time I'd assumed, that's not my problem anymore, I said finally, more firmly than I felt. Ethan made his choice the night he told me he didn't care if I left. Liam winced. He didn't mean it, Maya. You know how he gets when he's angry, says the exact opposite of what he's feeling. Don't. I stood abruptly, moving to the window. Don't make excuses for him. Not after everything. I'm not, Liam sighed. But you should know he's different now. The therapy, the rehab, it's changed him. He talks about you all the time. About how badly he screwed up. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching a ferry cut across the bay. It's too late for that. Is it? Liam asked quietly. Did you ever really stop loving him? The question hit like a physical blow. I turned, ready to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, unbidden, a memory surfaced. Ethan and I on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunrise the day after he proposed. His arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my head as we watched the city wake up. This is the first day of forever, he'd whispered. It doesn't matter what I feel, I said instead. Too much has happened. Like what happened with Clarissa? Liam asked. My laugh was bitter. For starters. There was never anything between them, Maya. I raised an eyebrow. I saw the texts. About the surprise anniversary party he was planning for you, Liam said. Clarissa was helping him organize it. Those late nights. He was meeting with the event planner, finalizing details for your 5th anniversary. He wanted it to be perfect. The room went very still. That's not possible. The texts you saw were about the venue they'd secured. The amazing thing was the rooftop garden where you had your first date. My legs suddenly unsteady, I sank back into my chair. But he was so cold when I confronted him. He didn't deny anything. Because he thought you were talking about the party. By the time he realized what you actually meant, you were already packing. And then his pride. Liam shook his head. You know, Ethan. Once he commits to a position, he'd rather die than back down. My mind raced, re-examining every moment of that night through this new lens. Could it be true? Had the past 18 months been built on a catastrophic misunderstanding? There's something else, Liam continued cautiously. After you left, Ethan found a card in your broken wedding frame. An appointment card for a fertility specialist. My heart stuttered. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach before I caught myself. He thinks that's why you really left, Liam said. Because he couldn't give you the family you wanted. That's not, I began then stopped. Wasn't it partially true? Our fundamental disagreement about children had created the first cracks in our marriage. I left because I thought he was cheating and had stopped loving me, I said carefully. The fertility treatments were something separate. Liam studied me, his gaze lingering a moment too long on my face, noting something different. A new fullness in my cheeks perhaps, or the glow people always talked about. You look different, he said slowly. Healthier than I remember. Before I could respond, my phone rang with the hospital's ringtone, the special tone I'd set for Dr. Chen. My heart rate spiked instantly. I need to take this, I said, already moving toward the kitchen for privacy. Of course, Liam nodded. Dr. Chen, I answered, keeping my voice low. Is everything okay? The doctor's voice was serious. Maya, your latest blood work shows some concerning results. I'd like you to come in immediately. What's wrong? Fear constricted my throat. Your hormone levels are fluctuating dangerously. There's a risk to the pregnancy if we don't address this right away. I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. I'll be there in 20 minutes. When I returned to the living room, Liam was standing by my bookshelf, examining a photo of Zoe and me on the Golden Gate Bridge. Everything okay? He asked, noting my pale face. I need to go, I said, already gathering my purse and keys. Emergency. Work situation. Liam nodded slowly, clearly not believing me but respectful enough not to press. Can we continue this conversation later? It's important, Maya. At the door I paused, a lifetime of decisions balanced on the edge of a moment. Liam, tell me honestly. Did Ethan really not have an affair? He really didn't, Liam said softly. The only person he's ever loved is you. As I rushed down the hallway toward the elevator, those words echoed in my mind alongside Dr. Chen's warning. The past and future colliding in ways I never could have imagined. The hospital waiting room was too bright, too sterile. I sat with my hands pressed between my knees to stop them from shaking, staring at the admission forms I'd just completed. The words high-risk pregnancy seemed to pulsate on the page. This can't be happening. Not now. Wyatt Chen. A nurse appeared at the doorway, clipboard in hand. I stood on unsteady legs. That's me. Dr. Chen is waiting for you in exam room 3. The walk down the corridor seemed endless. Each step brought another memory, another fear. My mother had died in childbirth when I was 6, a complication no one had predicted until it was too late. The same hospital smell, the same hushed voices had surrounded me then. Dr. Chen looked up when I entered, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes concerned. Maya, she said, gesturing to the exam table. Let's take a look, shall we? Her gentle efficiency was reassuring as she conducted the ultrasound, the cold gel on my stomach a sharp contrast to the warmth of anxiety flooding my body. There's your baby, she said, turning the screen toward me. Heart rate is strong. Relief loosened the knot in my chest. So everything's okay? With the baby, yes. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But your blood pressure is dangerously high, and your hormone levels indicate potential placental issues. We need to be very cautious. What does that mean exactly? It means bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy. Limited stress. Constant monitoring. She removed her glasses. Maya, given your family history, I'm classifying this as high risk. We may need to consider hospitalization if things worsen. The room seemed to tilt sideways. But I have a business to run. Projects with deadlines. I can't just. You can and you will, Dr. Chin interrupted firmly. Your health and your baby's life depend on it. I closed my eyes trying to process this new reality. 6 months of bed rest. My fledgling business that needed constant attention. No family to help. And now Liam's revelations about Ethan hanging over me like a storm cloud. Do you have someone who can take you home? Dr. Chin asked. Someone who can stay with you tonight? I'll call my friend Zoe, I said automatically, though I knew she was in Los Angeles for a conference. As if summoned by my thoughts, the exam room door opened, and Liam appeared, looking concerned and slightly out of breath. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I know I shouldn't have followed you, but you looked so pale and I was worried. Dr. Chin raised an eyebrow. Is this your partner, Maya? No, I said quickly. He's I hesitated. What exactly was Liam to me now? He's family, I finished lamely. Liam's expression softened at the word. Dr. Chin nodded. Well, Mr. Walker. Liam Walker. Mr. Walker, Maya needs to go home and rest immediately. She shouldn't be alone tonight. Can you arrange that? Before I could protest, Liam nodded. Of course. I'll take care of her. The doctor turned back to me. I'm prescribing medication to stabilize your blood pressure. Bed rest starts now. I want to see you again in 3 days. She handed me a pamphlet. These are warning signs to watch for. If you experience any of them, come to the emergency room immediately. 20 minutes later, Liam helped me into a taxi, the prescription bag clutched in my hand. The reality of my situation was beginning to sink in, bringing with it a wave of panic. Pie business, I murmured. The hotel project. I can't lose everything I've built. You won't, Liam said firmly. We'll figure it out. I turned to look at him. I'm not leaving you to handle this alone, Maya. His voice was gentle but determined. Not when you're carrying my niece or nephew. My head snapped up, eyes wide. How did you? The fertility specialist. The emergency appointment. Your hand constantly going to your stomach. He smiled slightly. I'm not completely oblivious. The taxi pulled up to my building. Once inside my apartment, Liam moved with surprising efficiency. Arranging pillows on the couch, filling a water glass, finding a blanket. You don't have to do this, I said, watching him from the doorway. I know. He paused, meeting my eyes. Is it Ethan's? The question hung in the air between us. I nodded slowly. Does he know? No one knows, I whispered. Except Zoe. And now you. Liam sat on the coffee table facing me. Maya, he has a right to know. No, I said more sharply than intended. He doesn't. He made it clear children weren't part of his plan. That was before. Things are different now. Are they? Or is he just at rock bottom and looking for something to cling to? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Liam sighed. You didn't see him after you left. He was destroyed. Not just that, Maya. Broken. When he found that appointment card, he finally understood what he'd thrown away. I looked away, unable to bear the sincerity in his eyes. It's too complicated now. Life is complicated, Liam countered. That's not a reason to keep this from him. My phone rang, saving me from responding. Zoe's name flashed on the screen. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. How's LA? Forget LA, she said, her voice tense. Why is Ethan's brother in your apartment? He just checked in on Instagram at your address. I shot Liam an exasperated look. It's a long story. I'm coming back tonight, Zoe declared. This can't be good for you or the baby. Actually, I said quietly, there's been a complication. I'm on bed rest now. Her sharp intake of breath carried across the line. What happened? As I explained the situation, Liam moved to the kitchen, giving me privacy. When I hung up, he returned with a cup of tea. Zoe's catching the next flight back, I told him. You don't need to stay. I'm not leaving you alone, he said simply. Doctor's orders. We settled into an uneasy silence. Outside, the sun began to set, painting the room in shades of orange and gold. In that moment, suspended between day and night, past and future, I felt strangely disconnected from my own life, as if watching it unfold from a distance. If I tell him, I said finally, breaking the silence, and he rejects this baby, I couldn't bear it. Liam met my gaze steadily. He won't. You don't know that. I know my brother, he said quietly. And I know he's never stopped loving you. 3 months passed in a blur of doctor's appointments and tedious bed rest. My living room had transformed into a makeshift office, with fabric swatches, design tablets and project boards spread across every surface. My baby bump, once barely visible, now proudly announced itself beneath my oversized t-shirts. You're glowing, Zoe said, arranging a bouquet of sunflowers on the coffee table. She'd organized a small baby shower, just the two of us, plus a few close friends from the design community. I'm sweating, I corrected, fanning myself. There's a difference. She laughed, adjusting a pillow behind my back. The ice cream cake should be here soon. Gender neutral as requested, though I still think you should find out if it's a boy or girl. I like surprises, I said, rubbing my stomach as the baby kicked. The good kind anyway. The doorbell rang and Zoe hurried to answer it. I expected the delivery person with the cake, but instead, Liam's voice drifted from the entryway. My eyebrows shot up in surprise. I hadn't seen him since that first night, though he'd called regularly to check on me. Sorry I'm late, he said, entering with a large gift box. Traffic was terrible. Zoe followed, her expression a mixture of annoyance and something else I couldn't quite place. Over the past months, she'd reluctantly accepted Liam's presence in my life, though I'd noticed they'd been texting more frequently than strictly necessary for updates about my condition. You didn't have to bring anything, I said, genuinely touched. Liam set the box beside me. It's nothing fancy. Just some things I thought might help. Inside was an assortment of thoughtfully selected items. A white noise machine, a pregnancy pillow, a stack of classic children's books and a hand-carved wooden mobile. The mobile was ours when we were little, Liam explained, suddenly self-conscious. My mom saved it. I thought, well, family traditions and all that. A lump formed in my throat. It's perfect. Thank you. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself watching Liam and Zoe, the way they orbited each other, always aware of the other's location in the room. There was an ease between them that hadn't existed before. When the last guest left, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. Zoe noticed immediately. Time for the mama-to-be to rest, she announced, helping me to my bedroom. Once I was settled, she lingered in the doorway. Liam's going to stay and help clean up if that's okay. I mumbled, already half asleep. You two take your time. I awoke hours later to hushed voices coming from the living room. Night had fallen, my bedroom illuminated only by the city lights through the window. I was about to call out when I heard my name. Can't keep lying to Maya, Liam was saying. She deserves to know. It would only stress her out, Zoe argued. The doctor said stress could trigger complications. And what happens when she eventually finds out? Don't you think that will be worse? I struggled to sit up, suddenly alert. What were they keeping from me? Fine, Zoe sighed. But after the baby is born. Ethan is getting worse, Liam's voice dropped. He's not drinking anymore, but the depression. I'm worried about him, Zoe. My heart constricted at the mention of Ethan's name. That's not Maya's responsibility, Zoe insisted. Isn't it? At least partially. They're still technically married. She's carrying his child. And everything was based on a misunderstanding. I'd heard enough. Grabbing the bedside lamp for support, I leveraged myself up and made my way to the door. When I pulled it open, both Zoe and Liam jumped. What are you hiding from me? I demanded. They exchanged guilty looks. Liam spoke first. Ethan's been asking about you, he admitted. He knows you're in San Francisco. How? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. He saw one of your design spreads in Architectural Digest, Zoe said reluctantly. Your company name was featured. A chill ran down my spine. Has he tried to contact me? No, Liam assured me. But he's been struggling. Seeing your success while his life has fallen apart. It's been hard for him. I made my way to the couch, lowering myself carefully. Tell me everything. Now. Over the next 20 minutes, they filled in the gaps they'd been careful to avoid for months. Ethan had indeed gone through rehab successfully, but his depression had deepened. He'd been diagnosed with major depressive disorder. He'd sold everything to pay off company debts. He was living in a small apartment in Brooklyn, working remotely as a consultant. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, looking between them. Because of this, Zoe gestured to my stomach. Your blood pressure. The complications. I'm not made of glass, I said, anger rising. I deserve to know the truth. You're right, Liam admitted. I'm sorry. A sudden wave of dizziness hit me and I pressed a hand to my forehead. Maya. Zoe was instantly beside me. Are you okay? Just lightheaded, I mumbled. But as I tried to stand, the room tilted violently. My vision tunneled, darkness creeping in from the edges. Call 911. I heard Liam shout, his voice seeming to come from very far away. Then nothing. I woke to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors. The room was dim, but I could make out Zoe's figure slumped in a chair beside the bed, and Liam pacing near the window. What happened? My voice was barely a whisper. Both their heads snapped toward me. Thank God, Zoe breathed, rushing to my side. You've been unconscious for hours. The baby. Fear clutched my heart. Stable, Liam said, relief evident in his voice. But the doctor says they may need to deliver early. Your preeclampsia is progressing. How early? I asked, my hand finding my belly. They're monitoring you overnight, Zoe explained gently. If your condition doesn't improve, they'll do a C-section tomorrow. Tomorrow. The word echoed in my mind. I wasn't ready. The nursery wasn't finished. I hadn't decided on a name. I hadn't. Maya, Liam interrupted my spiraling thoughts, his expression serious. There's something else you should know. Zoe shot him a warning look, but he continued. Ethan is here. In San Francisco. He arrived yesterday for a job interview. Does he know I'm in the hospital? My voice trembled. Liam hesitated. Not yet. But I think he should. The machines registered my spiking heart rate, sending a nurse hurrying into the room. I need you two to step out, she said firmly to Zoe and Liam. Miss Chin needs to remain calm. As they were ushered out, Liam turned back. Maya, this isn't just about you anymore. It's about your child. Ethan's child. His words hung in the air as the door closed behind them. Morning arrived with a flurry of medical activity. Doctors spoke in hushed, urgent tones about dropping platelet counts and rising blood pressure. I caught fragments of their discussions. Emergency C-section, 28 weeks, NICU team standing by. Fear gripped me with icy fingers. It was too soon. 7 months wasn't enough time. We're prepping the OR now, Dr. Wilson, the obstetrician on call, explained. Her calm demeanor belied the gravity of the situation. The preeclampsia is severe, Maya. We need to deliver today to protect both you and your baby. I nodded numbly, signing consent forms with trembling hands. A nurse prepped my four while another explained the procedure. Can Zoe come in with me? Asked, my voice small. Of course, Dr. Wilson assured me. We'll bring her in once you're prepped. As they transferred me to a gurney, panic bubbled in my chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. I'd imagined a different scenario. Peaceful, prepared, perhaps even with the baby's father by my side. Then, the thought came unbidden, bringing with it a wave of conflicting emotions. He didn't know. He might never know. And now, as our child prepared to enter the world 3 months early, I wondered if I'd made the right choice. In the operating room, bright lights blinded me. The anesthesiologist explained the spinal block as he positioned me on the table. The room was cold, sterile, terrifying in its efficiency. Zoe Harris, a nurse called. She can come in now. But when the door opened, it wasn't Zoe who appeared. It was Ethan. Time seemed to stop. He stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock as they took in the scene. Me on the operating table, the medical team preparing for surgery, the unmistakable purpose of it all. What are you doing here? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the beeping monitors. He stepped forward, surgical mask covering the lower half of his face, but his eyes, those familiar brown eyes, filled with a storm of emotions. Liam told me everything. he said, his voice rough. I had to come. Before I could respond, a contraction seized me. The monitors blared as my blood pressure spiked dangerously. We need to start now, Dr. Wilson ordered. Sir, if you're staying, take position by her head. Otherwise, you need to leave immediately. I expected Ethan to back away, to flee from this responsibility he'd never asked for. Instead, he moved to my side and took my hand. I'm staying, he said firmly. The anesthesiologist administered the spinal block. As warmth and numbness spread through my lower body, Ethan leaned close. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. Tears blurred my vision. Not now, Ethan. I can't. I know, he squeezed my hand. Just let me be here for you. For both of you. The procedure began, a strange pressure but no pain. Ethan stayed by my head, his hand holding mine, his eyes never leaving my face. Almost there, Dr. Wilson announced after what seemed like hours but was likely only minutes. Then suddenly a different tension filled the room. The medical team exchanged glances. The pressure in my abdomen increased. Baby's heart rate is dropping, someone called out. Get the NICU team in here now. Dr. Wilson ordered. Everything accelerated. More people rushed in. Ethan's hand tightened around mine. What's happening? I asked, fear clawing at my throat. No one answered directly. Instead, there was a flurry of activity and then a tiny weak cry. It's a girl, Dr. Wilson announced, but her voice held no celebration. 1 pound 9 ounces. They whisked my daughter away before I could even see her. Ethan's face had gone pale. Where are they taking her? He demanded. To the NICU, a nurse explained. She needs immediate intervention. As they continued working on me, closing the incision, Ethan looked torn, wanting to follow our daughter but unwilling to leave my side. Go with her, I urged. Please. Don't let her be alone. He hesitated only briefly before nodding and following the NICU team out. The next hours passed in a haze of recovery room monitors and whispered updates. My daughter, our daughter, was fighting for her life. Critical but stable, they said. Too small, too early, but showing signs of her mother's stubbornness. When they finally wheeled me to my room, Ethan was waiting. He looked exhausted, the circles under his eyes dark against his pale skin. How is she? I asked immediately. Holding her own, he said, his voice tight with emotion. God, Maya, she's so tiny. But the doctors say her lungs are stronger than expected. I closed my eyes, relief washing through me. There's something else, Ethan continued. They needed her blood type for some tests. I opened my eyes, suddenly understanding where this was going. She's AB negative, he said slowly. I blood type. Our eyes met across the room. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. You said you didn't want children, I whispered. And then you said you didn't care if I left. I was an idiot, he admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. The biggest idiot on the planet. I never meant any of it. It doesn't matter now, I said, too exhausted for this conversation. What matters is our daughter. Ethan moved closer, perching cautiously on the edge of my bed. Have you named her? I shook my head. I thought I had more time. We could do it together, he suggested tentatively. If you want. The offer hung in the air between us, not just naming our child but acknowledging that we were in this together whether we wanted to be or not. Before I could answer, Zoe burst into the room, followed closely by Liam. She stopped short when she saw Ethan. Hiya, she breathed, hurrying to my side. I'm so sorry. They wouldn't let me in earlier. It's okay, I assured her, reaching for her hand. Ethan was there. Zoe's eyes darted between us, assessing the situation. And the baby? In the NICU, Ethan answered. Fighting hard. Liam approached his brother cautiously. You know. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. I know. The tension in the room was palpable. For people connected by circumstances none of us could have predicted, standing at the threshold of a future none of us had planned. When he said he didn't care if I left, I never came back. Now he cries alone every night. Section 7. The Painful Reconciliation. 1 week later, I stood before the incubator in the NICU, my hand pressed against the clear plastic. Inside, our daughter lay surrounded by tubes and wires, her tiny chest rising and falling with each assisted breath. Despite everything she was fighting, A Johnson trait, Ethan had said with rare humor. We had fallen into an uneasy routine. Ethan took the night shift in the NICU while I recovered from surgery. I came during the day, reading children's books aloud and singing softly to the baby we'd named Lily, after my mother. How is she today? Ethan's voice came from behind me. He looked exhausted, hair rumpled, wearing the same sweater he'd had on yesterday. He'd been sleeping in the hospital waiting room, refusing to leave even when I assured him I'd call if anything changed. The doctor says her oxygen levels improved overnight, I said, making room for him beside me. And she gained an ounce. His face brightened. That's our girl. Our girl. The phrase still felt strange. A reminder of the permanent connection between us regardless of what happened next. I brought you something, Ethan said, lifting a paper bag. Your favorite breakfast sandwich from that place on the corner. I accepted it with surprise. You remembered. Sourdough, egg white, avocado, no tomato. He shrugged. Some things you don't forget. The simple gesture hit me harder than I expected. Tears welled unexpectedly. Hey, he said softly. What's wrong? Nothing. I wiped my eyes. Just hormones, I guess. But it wasn't just hormones. It was the disorienting sensation of having him be so thoughtful after everything that had happened between us. The careful distance I'd maintained for 18 months was collapsing, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. The nurses said we can hold her today, I said, changing the subject. Kangaroo care, they call it. Skin-to-skin contact. Ethan's expression softened. Both of us. I nodded. They recommended we take turns. It helps with bonding and her development. An hour later, a nurse helped position Lily on my bare chest, covering both of us with a warmed blanket. Despite the wires and monitors still attached to her, feeling her tiny weight against me was transformative. Her skin, translucent and delicate, flushed pink with the contact. She knows you're her mom, the nurse said kindly before stepping away to give us privacy. I looked up to find Ethan watching us, something unreadable in his expression. What? I asked. He began, then cleared his throat. I'm trying to process that I almost missed this. That I never would have known her. The accusation wasn't spoken, but it hung in the air between us. I was going to tell you, I said quietly. Eventually. When? The question was simple but loaded with hurt. I don't know, I admitted. I was scared you'd reject her. Reject us. I would never. You told me you didn't want children, I reminded him. Multiple times, Ethan. You said they weren't part of your plan. He flinched. I was an idiot. Yes, I agreed. You were. A ghost of a smile crossed his face at my bluntness. But so was I continued. I should have been honest about what I wanted instead of going behind your back with the fertility treatments. Why weren't you? He asked softly. I looked down at Lily, gathering my thoughts. I was afraid of losing you. Ironic, isn't it? I lost you anyway. You didn't lose me, Ethan said, his voice low and intense. I lost you. Through my own stupidity and pride. We fell silent, the only sounds the steady beep of Lily's monitors and the hushed activity of the NICU around us. Do you remember our trip to Cape Cod? Ethan asked suddenly. The summer before we started the company? I smiled despite myself. The bed and breakfast with the terrible plumbing? And the amazing blueberry pancakes, he added. That was the last vacation we took before everything got so complicated. We were happy, I said softly. We were. He met my eyes. We could be again. My heart stuttered. Ethan. Not like before, he said quickly. I'm not asking for that. But maybe we could try counseling. For Lily's sake, if nothing else. Before I could respond, the door opened and Zoe entered carrying a vase of sunflowers. How's our little fighter today? She asked, setting the flowers on a nearby table. Getting stronger, I replied, grateful for the interruption. Zoe smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She had been polite but cool toward Ethan since his appearance, protective of me in a way that both touched and occasionally frustrated me. I ran into Dr. Wilson in the hallway, she said. She wants to discuss Lily's care plan going forward. As if on cue, my phone chimed with an email notification. I shifted carefully, trying not to disturb Lily, while Ethan reached for my phone. It's from Michael Ching, he said, reading the screen. Something about the Oceanside Hotel project? I winced. My biggest client. The project I was working on before. I gestured vaguely at the hospital room. He says they're considering moving in a different direction due to delays, Ethan continued, frowning. Maya, when was the last time you checked in with your clients? Not since the emergency, I admitted. Zoe's been handling some things but I don't know design, Zoe finished. I've been trying but they need you, Maya. Panic rose in my chest. This project represented nearly half my company's projected annual revenue. Losing it would be devastating. Let me see. Ethan held out his hand for my phone. What are you going to do? I asked skeptically. I do know something about client management, he reminded me. And development projects. This isn't your problem, I said automatically. His eyes met mine, steady and determined. Our daughter needs you focused on her, not worrying about your business falling apart. Let me help. Why would you do that? The question escaped before I could stop it. Because, he said simply, despite everything I never stopped caring. The words echoed my own thoughts from so many lonely nights, leaving me momentarily speechless. Zoe cleared her throat. I should give you two some privacy. Liam's waiting downstairs. As she left, I noticed the slight softening in her expression, the first crack in her protective armor where Ethan was concerned. Okay, I said finally, turning back to Ethan. You can help. But just with this client situation. He nodded, relief evident in his posture. Thank you. As Lily stirred against my chest, I realized we had taken our first tentative step toward something new. Not the relationship we had before, but something else entirely. Something built around the tiny person who connected us more profoundly than marriage vows ever had. 6 months later, autumn sunlight filtered through the windows of my San Francisco apartment, painting golden patterns across the living room floor. Lily, now thriving at 7 months old, adjusted for her prematurity, sat in her bouncer, giggling as Zoe made silly faces at her. I swear she gets more beautiful every day, Zoe said, gently tickling Lily's chin. Those eyes are definitely yours, but that stubborn chin? Pure Ethan. I smiled, watching my daughter's delighted expression. After 2 months in the NICU and countless anxious nights, Lily had defied every concerning prognosis. The doctors called her resilient. I called her miraculous. Speaking of Ethan, Zoe continued, her tone careful, how's the new arrangement working out? The arrangement she referred to had evolved gradually over the past months. What began as Ethan helping with my business crisis had developed into a professional partnership. His tech expertise complemented my design skills perfectly, allowing us to create an innovative digital design platform that had attracted significant investment. We now shared an office downtown with a nursery space for Lily. Our personal relationship remained more complicated. It's working, I said, folding tiny onesies fresh from the dryer. We're good at the co-parenting thing. Better than I expected. And the other thing? Zoe asked, raising an eyebrow. I busied myself with the laundry. There is no other thing. We're focused on Lily. Zoe gave me a skeptical look but didn't press further. Liam's picking me up in an hour. Sure you don't want to join us for dinner? The development of Zoe and Liam's relationship had been an unexpected silver lining to this whole complicated situation. Watching two people I cared about find happiness together. Thanks, but Ethan's coming over to work on the Johnson proposal. The client meeting's on Monday. The doorbell rang as if on cue. That's early for him, Zoe noted, checking her watch. I opened the door to find Ethan holding a paper bag from our favorite takeout place and a folder tucked under his arm. I got the renderings from the architect, he said by way of greeting, stepping inside. And dinner, since I figured you'd forget to eat again. His eyes landed on Zoe and he nodded politely. Hey Zoe. Ethan. Her response was cordial if not warm. Despite her relationship with Liam, she maintained a protective distance where Ethan was concerned. After a brief, awkward exchange, Zoe gathered her things. At the door she whispered in my ear, "Call me later," with meaningful emphasis. Once she was gone, Ethan set out the food while I put Lily in her high chair. The domesticity of the scene wasn't lost on me. The three of us around the table passing containers, Ethan carefully cutting tiny pieces of noodles for Lily to grasp with her improving motor skills. The architect made those changes we discussed, he said, opening his laptop. I think the client's going to love it. But I wasn't looking at the screen. I was watching him with Lily, the gentle way he wiped sauce from her chin, the patient smile when she grabbed his finger instead of her sippy cup. What? He asked, catching my gaze. Nothing, I said quickly. Let's see those renderings. We worked through dinner, Lily eventually dozing off in her high chair. I transferred her to her crib while Ethan cleaned up the takeout containers. When I returned to the living room, I found him standing by the bookshelf, holding the old watch I'd returned to him months ago. He'd left it here accidentally last week. I remember when you gave me this, he said quietly. For our first anniversary. You were always late to everything, I recalled, smiling despite myself. Except our wedding, he countered. I was an hour early for that. The memory hung between us, Ethan pacing anxiously in the small chapel, refusing to sit down until I appeared at the end of the aisle. Why, he said, setting the watch down carefully. I've been meaning to talk to you about something. My heart rate quickened. What is it? The counselor thinks we've made good progress with the co-parenting plan, he began. But there's something I haven't been completely honest about. I tensed, preparing myself for something difficult. I don't want to just co-parent with you, he said, his voice steadier than I expected. I want more than that. Ethan. Let me finish, he continued. I know we can't go back to what we were. Too much has happened. But I think we could move forward. Together. If you wanted to try. I stared at him, momentarily speechless. I'm not asking for an answer now, he added quickly. Just think about it. Before I could respond, Lily's cry came through the baby monitor. I moved toward the nursery automatically, grateful for the interruption. When I returned with a calmed Lily in my arms, Ethan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city lights. She just needed her pacifier, I explained. He turned, his expression softening at the sight of our daughter. Can I hold her? I passed Lily to him, watching as she settled comfortably against his chest, her tiny hand clutching his shirt. I've been thinking about it for months, I said finally, answering his earlier question. About us. About trying again. His eyes met mine, careful hope visible in them. I'm scared, I admitted. Not just of being hurt again but of messing this up. I gestured to Lily. She deserves better than what we had before. She does, he agreed. And so do you. I took a deep breath. The night I left, I was so certain we were over. That there was nothing left worth saving. And now, he asked quietly. How I think. I paused, searching for the right words. I think some endings are really beginnings in disguise. Ethan's expression shifted, surprise giving way to something warmer. Is that a yes? It's a maybe, I clarified. A careful, cautious maybe. He nodded, accepting this. I can work with maybe. Lily yawned in his arms, her eyelids growing heavy. Together we walked to the nursery, placing her gently in her crib. We stood side by side, watching our daughter's peaceful sleep, the product of a love that had once seemed irreparably broken. As we stepped back into the hallway, Ethan reached for my hand, a tentative gesture, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't. His fingers laced with mine, familiar yet new. The simple touch held no promises beyond this moment, yet somehow that felt like enough. I used to believe that when someone says they don't care if you leave, the only option is to walk away forever. I never imagined standing here, my hand in his, with our daughter sleeping peacefully nearby. I never imagined that sometimes the deepest wounds can heal into something stronger than before. Outside, the city twinkled beneath a clear night sky. Inside, in the quiet of my apartment, a different kind of light began to grow. Not the blinding brightness of our first love, but something steadier. Something that had weathered the storm and emerged, impossibly, still glowing.